athlete, but excited about this one today. Alison Gibson, two-time Olympian. She's more than that, though. She's a lot more than that, but two-time Olympian is a cool way to start. Uh, National title winner, a bunch of, she even wrote, I won a few national titles. Oh, yeah, I became an NCAA champion. Just very casual about it. Uh, Graduated University of Texas. Now she's a consultant as well, and just competed in the last two Olympics in diving. In diving, it's a Sunday recording, which has almost never happened, which has never happened. We always record typically on Mondays or later in the week, but out of nowhere, she gets to go to Hawaii. So
Yeah.
that's pretty sweet. So she's kind enough to meet with us on Sunday in the middle of the holiday season. So Allison, first, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Should be a good time. Tell me about what's going on with Hawaii. How are you getting there? What's going on?
Oh my God. How am I getting there? Well, I'm flying.
Right?
Because I'm here in Austin, Texas, so it's a little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a long travel day, but we're flying over there, just me and my family, just enjoying a few days in the sun, trying to escape the cold. I mean, I'm in Texas, so the cold here is like 40 degrees, but still anything is better. And yeah, it was super last minute. My brother's a lawyer and he a case closed and he was like, "Hey guys, let's do it." And so literally this happened like 3 days ago. He gave a call. We booked the flights and so here we are. Just my family keeps me on my toes.
What parts of Hawaii are you going to?
We're going to Maui,
Oh, wow.
which I've never been. I've never been to Hawaii ever.
Okay.
I've always wanted to go, and so I'm like, this is exciting. There's just gonna be a beach, and I'm excited to be on the beach.
Fun. Fun. I took my wife there when she for turning 50 a few years back. Went to Honolulu, and we're
Nice.
we're big nerds. So a couple days
Yeah,
at Pearl Harbor, then also to the Big Island, national parks, volcanoes, all that jazz. So
that's amazing.
awesome time. It's a bit of a trip, as you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but what a gift, and to spend with your family, outstanding. And then over the holidays in Hawaii, that's gonna be awesome.
yeah,
And being a Texas girl, big W last night, right? I got my
yeah.
my Ohio State hat on. So were you watching the game, I assume, or are you a big
I did.
Longhorns fan?
I did watch the game a little bit. It is always it's kind of funny though because I become complacent because I just like expect us to win unless we're
Mm,
playing against Georgia. Like I'm like oh, we're gonna win. It's gonna be fine. But yeah, I grew up here in Austin, Texas. My dad went to UT, my brother went to UT. I went to UT for undergrad and grad school, so I've always joked from ever since I was a kid, I have burnt orange blood in my veins. It doesn't run red.
right.
Um, and so yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Texas and yeah, they've been a huge part of my childhood and my life, so it's always fun to see them actually winning now. I'm like, this is great.
It's a lot more fun when you win, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Uh, is it Oklahoma, the school that you absolutely hate, or is there another one?
I don't. Everyone has like these like rivals. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I was growing up, it was like Texas A&M, and now it's OU, and now that we're all in the SEC, it's kind of just a jumble of a bunch of people. But I don't hate them. I don't know. I think I have a mutual respect. I have a respect for
Sure.
hard work.
Yep.
And so for me, I'm like, hey, I support my team, but I'm not getting crazy hating on the other team. I just like watching good games
Yeah.
and good athletes. So
Yes, true. There's some teams I really don't like at all, whether it's college or pro. But I'm watching some of these games. I'm like, wow, that was impressive. That was a sweet play. You know,
yeah,
uh, I lose a little bit now that I'm older, right?
yeah,
And not like that kid that's just, oh man, this is rivalry week, man. Hate that school, hate that team. So
yeah,
not yeah. Either ways, I think works just fine.
yeah.
So two-time Olympian and in diving, but like most athletes, you didn't just start diving, right? You had a
I
little
didn't.
bit of a smorgasbord of different endeavors, right? You're a well-rounded athlete for quite a while. So
Yeah.
just quick overview, how you grew up with sports and what was impactful.
Yeah, so my mom always wanted to put my brother and I in sports because she really didn't play sports that much as a kid. And so she was like, I want my kids to have an opportunity to do this. And so yeah, she always wanted us to swim because she said, no matter how old you get, no matter what happens, you can swim. It's easy on your joints, right? You can be 90 years old and you can be floating in the pool. So swimming was always really important. So that was my very first sport. I knew how to swim before I could walk. That's what I always say. But she also put us in other sports. So dance was really important. She put me in dance for coordination. She put me in tennis as well. A little bit of gymnastics, but that was only when I was really young. So kind of a lot of acrobatic stuff, coordination related stuff, some hand-eye coordination, but everyone jokes I have the worst hand-eye coordination on the planet. Throw me a ball and I do this. Like it's not
No.
good. So it's not good. But yeah, so I did a bunch of different sports and then I stopped tennis when I was pretty young, stopped gymnastics when I was pretty young, and started focusing more in on the water sports. So swimming and and dance were kind of the two sports that I kept in my wheelhouse for quite a bit longer. And then eventually, the story of how I got into diving is actually kind of crazy. But eventually got into diving when I was 9 years old, and then after that, just ended up focusing in on that, and that became my central sport. I can get into the story of how I got into it now or later. I don't know. But yeah, played a lot of sports.
What part of swimming did you like?
None of it. I don't know. It was a good sport. It was a good sport in the sense of it trained discipline,
Hmm.
right? I think that was a thing. It's very difficult to get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and go jump in a cold pool. You don't want to do that. Nobody in their right mind is like excited, to do that, especially when you're, 8 years old. And so I think for me, that wasn't a part that I necessarily enjoyed, but it was a part that was so good for me. And then I just loved being in the water. I don't know, I was always in the water ever since I was a kid, so it was just kind of the place that I was comfortable. It was a place that I enjoyed, and it was fun. I hated freestyle, hated it, but I was good at every other stroke, so that was the thing. I loved doing any stroke except freestyle, and especially the hard events that people hated because I was good at them. Because nobody else wanted to do them, so I would do them, and I was good. So those were the parts that I enjoyed, and obviously the team having, people going through pain with you is
Hmm.
always more fun than going through pain alone. So those were good moments, and yeah, I just enjoyed being in the water.
Hmm. As long as it's not 4 o'clock in the morning and cold.
Yeah.
But so butterfly stroke, pretty tough one, right?
Yeah, it is. It is tough, but it was so funny because I've always had like good form. I think it's because my history of maybe like dance. I don't know. So coaches and people would have their athletes watch my form. So like
Mm.
I don't know what it was. It was just the way I did my stroke, but I was so short. I was like this tiny little kid. And so, it took me like three strokes to do the same distance as someone who was like a foot taller than me. But people always just loved the way my stroke looked. So that was one really unique thing about me is like I was not necessarily like the fastest kid, but I had a nice stroke. And people liked it. And so yeah,
Well,
it was a
when you
fun
build
time.
an athlete, there's a lot of things that go into it, and then
Yeah.
to the big things are your parents
Yeah.
physically,
Yeah.
because Michael Phelps is what, 6'5",
Yeah.
6'6", right?
Yeah.
5'10" dudes don't win,
Yeah.
right? So you're not necessarily built for that piece. Now, to be a diver, when you started diving at 9, did you keep swimming?
I did for a period of time. So I think I kept swimming for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think it was like 2 or 3 years. So basically what happened was um I was swimming. I knew everyone on the pool deck and eventually made my way over to the diving well and met the college diving coach, Matt Scoggin. He was coaching at the University of Texas, still is. And he knew me as just this like super bubbly, intense like kid. And he was like, "You should try diving." He asked me how tall my parents were, which is
Mm.
funny coming back to the parents. And I was like, "Oh, my mom's like 5'5". My dad's like 5'8", or not 5'8", sorry, he's like 5'10". And my coach was like, "You'd be the perfect height for diving." Or Matt told me, "You'd be the perfect height for diving." And I said, "No, I'm going to the Olympics for swimming." I was very dead set on swimming. So I go back, I'm training as a swimmer still. And I think like 3 months later, a new head coach came into the program and said my group could only train 5 days a week. And I had to be there 6 days a week because my brother was at the pool 6 days a week. And I told my mom, I said, hey, this college coach said I should try diving. I always had looked over at the diving boards and thought it looked fun. So I was like, I would love to try it. And my mom had no idea what she was getting herself into. And she said, sure, why not? Whatever. We have to be at the pool anyway. So I started diving. That's kind of how I got into it.
Hmm.
Started diving on Friday nights. So I would swim the rest of the week. I would dive on Friday night. And then, like, it was kind of like the first day I touched the diving board, the coaches were like, you're good. And so the dive coaches they pushed, for me to add days. And so I think I went from like 1 day to 3 days, but I was still swimming. And so eventually I got to the point where I was going 5 days a week. And what would happen is I would get to the pool and I would dive for like, I think it was like an hour and a half. And then I would swim for an hour and 15 minutes. And then I would go back and dive for like 30 to 45 minutes. And I would be just working out like crazy. Like I was so fit. There's a picture of me somewhere. You can like see my six pack like through my swimsuit. It was the craziest thing.
Dang,
But
that much
yeah,
volume.
so that was what I did. Obviously I built up into that and I only did that specific training regimen for maybe a year or 6 months or something. And eventually I got good enough at diving where I started swimming less, diving more, and then I started making international meets. And I think that was the point where it was like, why am I still swimming? I need to fully invest into this sport. So
Gotcha. Man, that's so much volume, young kid. I can't imagine the caloric intake need. Uh, just selfishly, because I'm a very beginner swimmer at this age.
yeah.
Very beginner. I started in June this year, June of this year. I learned when I was a kid, but didn't really do it much ever, unless I'm at like some pool drinking beer. So, what kind of volume would you be swimming on a typical day at say 12 years old before you start diving?
I don't know. I don't remember the yardage. But I mean, we would have like 2 hour practices. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. It's so long ago. Like morning practice would be like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And afternoon practice was normally 2 hours. And I think that was where I got to at that age. Um, so yeah, it was a lot.
So that's 4 to 5 thousand meters in a day.
Maybe probably. I don't know. To be completely honest, I couldn't tell you
Gotcha.
how far I swam. I will say for you though, as like a master swimmer or someone getting into it, like
By
an
master,
hour and a half
she meant smart and awesome. That's what she meant.
an hour and a half swim workout in the morning is more than enough. Like
Yeah,
you're burning a really good amount of calories and getting an amazing workout in. The reason, you're training so hard as a kid is because you're trying to build up just an insane amount of endurance and stuff. But you don't it's not preferred, right? Because then you're
sure.
putting a lot of strain on your body, your
Right.
shoulders, your back, things like that. So
There's training to be healthy, and then there's training to win, and they're
yeah.
different. And
Yeah, exactly.
training to win in a lot of ways is very, very unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started diving more, right, as you're approaching like junior high, and then definitely high school, and you're going to
Yeah.
international meets, and then you're winning things. So international, that means outside the United States. Boy, what an expensive endeavor. Expensive, right? Traveling all the
Well,
time.
not really. Well, okay, so it is expensive. My parents spent ungodly amounts of money on my training. Like they
Mm,
truly sacrificed a ton for me to be where I am today, and I'm so thankful for that. But when it comes to traveling internationally, once you make those meets, you're not paying for any of that, right?
oh,
So
nice.
if I earn the spot to compete at Junior Pan Ams or World Championships, USA Diving is actually funding all of that, right?
Oh,
So that was the goal, right? The goal was, okay, you fund your way to nationals, right? So you have to pay for regionals and zones, and then you make it to nationals. And the goal is I want to make the international meet so I can get to compete internationally, but then I also get to go to Colombia, or I get to go to Cuba, or I get to go to Australia, or I get to go to Budapest, or I get to go to
wow.
South Korea or Japan, right? So that was the really cool part. I made my first international meet when I think I was 11 years old, and that was in Colombia. And I remember my dad, went with me as well, and he had to pay for his trip, but my trip was fully paid for. They book everything, they do it all. You go, you compete, you get a bunch of gear. So I remember when I made that first meet, I was so small. I don't know how tall I was. I was like 4'6", and I weighed like maybe 65 pounds. I was a tiny little kid. And they sent me this huge box of USA gear. And I remember I opened it up and I was so excited. There's a video of me somewhere and I got inside the box and I was like,
Hmm.
look how big it is. I can fit in a box. And it was this huge suitcase full of all this USA equipment. And that was kind of my first moment when I was a little kid where I thought, wow, maybe I can actually like do this thing. Maybe I can be really good at this sport. Um, and it was so cool to have that because I've been working ever since I started diving. My goal was I'm gonna make an international meet. I'm gonna get the equipment, all that stuff. And so it was so cool to actually, as a kid, see that come to life for the first time and open up that box, and it was amazing.
I asked a lot of our athletes, um, what's their welcome to moment? Like, whether it's basketball or football players, and they'll say like, man, that first time I'm playing in college, or the guy just had on, man, I saw Junior Seau because he was a pro NFL player, and you see what this next level is like. So that's the fun welcome to moment for you. Was there a welcome to moment, either swimming or diving, where you're like, oh shit, this is for real, man. These people are. I'm not just smashing the local kid down the street. These are some legit people, and then I'm like, oh man, that was good, and that wasn't me. Like, that's impressive what that person just did.
Yeah, I would say probably like I don't know. I mean, I was always like kind of impressed with the people around me since the beginning because like as I started leveling up, like was better than me, right? I started and it was like I would go to a regional meet and I'd be like, "Wow, that person is amazing." And then I would build up and I would get better than them and then go to, zone meet and like, "Wow, these people are amazing." And you're building up and then I remember my first time going to nationals because I will say like I did do good pretty quickly and so like I remember that I think the first meet I went to ever I think I might have won and that was like a regional meet or I got like top 3 or something but I remember my very first time going to junior nationals probably I think that was when I was maybe 9 or 10 maybe because I think I'm yeah, maybe I was 10 at that time. First time I ever made junior nationals. I remember being just overwhelmed. And my first event, I did well. I ended up like fourth place. And then in my other two events, I was just really freaked out. And I didn't do as well. I don't even think I like finaled. Maybe I semi-finaled. I don't know. And so I think that was overwhelming where I was like, wow, these girls are really good. And then the next year I came in and I think I ended up either winning or getting second place and making that international meet. So I think there's a little bit of there's a build up there. And obviously, the first time you're going to a big event, there's a lot of hoopla and there's a lot of, these people are really good, be afraid of them. In all reality, it's like they're actually not that good. Like you're at the same level as them. And I think that's a huge athletic mindset thing where people will say this person is so good, be afraid. And then when you actually get in that moment, you're like, I can actually beat this person. And so it's really important to play that mental game with yourself and recognize like it's not as scary or as hard or as bad as you think it is. There's just a lot of buildup.
So there's two sides of that, right? There's always mostly two sides of everything. Sun Tzu would say all battles are won before they're ever fought. So if
Yeah.
I'm so great, a lot of people won't even sign up or compete against me because they had already been defeated in their head, or they know they can't beat me, right? If I'm
Yeah.
that great, right? If I'm that
Yeah.
great, if I'm just Greg Louganis all the time, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, maybe that person's that great, maybe that person isn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a lot of hype. The media, like this person had a good story or they had a win, blah, blah, blah. They kind of expect that person to do well. If you came in second last year, they're assuming you're going to be in first this year.
Yeah.
Well, that assumes that you're driven the whole time. That assumes you're checking all the boxes the whole time. And then you're still pushing. And the people that are pushing around you didn't push past. That's a lot
Yeah.
of assumptions.
Yeah.
And so if you're the underdog, it's a bit freeing because there is less perceived pressure. And two, you can just go and attack,
Yeah.
right? So if you come in and like, hey, that person, not, I'm here. Like
Yeah.
I'm just as good. I hit all the qualifying numbers to be here. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, it's a bit freeing, and you can just go ahead and go after it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be the one that's awesome that everyone's afraid of. I'm intimidating those folks,
Yeah.
but with the mindset of, man, I still got everything to prove. I got to stay hungry, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the trick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, in most sports growing up, I said every sport growing up, there is this natural toxicity of those around you, your teammates, and the parents, right? And some people could generalize it's different for men and women.
Yeah.
Some more and some less. The the I had a pro volleyball player on. She played for Peru, and she's like, yeah, one of the main reasons I simply got to that level was because I just kept outlasting people.
Yeah.
Year after year, some bone just kind of just falls off and stops.
Yeah.
So at a young age, there's a big pool, if you will, of candidates that can dive. And then each year it gets whittled down, whittled down, whittled down, and because it's a big funneling process
Yeah.
and filtering process to find who's the best from representation for the country.
Yeah.
Talk about that, how you got to keep going and keep progressing while others are still progressing. You see some of the same girls year after year,
Yeah.
but eventually you outlast them, and now you're going to the Olympics two times in a row. Talk about that journey.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. There are a few parts to this, so um there are the ones that get burned out and stop. There are the ones that get injured and stop. And I definitely saw that. There are ones that people thought, were going to be amazing, and something happened, and they they aren't training at all anymore. And so you do see that for sure. And I think there is something about outlasting. I was really lucky and blessed to be a pretty healthy child. Genetically, I think the way my body is built, it was built in a way that was pretty hardy. And my mom made me do yoga every day when I was like a little kid, which I think helped as well. I had good flexibility and good strength built for my muscles and things like that. So I think that helped me with longevity. And then I think there's a mindset aspect to this as well, where you have to want it. I think sometimes with these kids, their parents want it more than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if their parents are saying you have to be there, there's only so good you can get, and there's only so much you can do before you break. And so I think that's kind of something that I saw. There's a combination of these things. But for me, it was always about my parents pushed me very hard. I wouldn't be who I am without them pushing me, and I'm so thankful for that. But also, I had my own internal drive and my own internal desire to be excellent that drove me to go above and beyond, to do more than the people around me, to stay healthy, to do things like that. And so I think that was a big part of it. But then you would also see, some examples of these girls who were really good as kids, and then they fell off or they got injured, and then they made a mental shift and they said, we still want to be in it. And then they switched back on and they got really, really good. So I think everyone kind of has their own journey and their own path. Some people make it, some people don't. At the end of the day, I think it comes down to your mindset. Truly, it comes down to your mindset and your commitment and your drive. And you have to make up in your mind. This is what I tell people all the time when I talk to kids, like, and they're asking me, how do I do it? How do I figure out the success? And how do I win? And how do I get past this mental block, whatever it is? And I'm like, it's your mind. Like, it all starts with your mind, and like, you have to want it.
Yes.
Nobody can want it for you.
Right.
Nobody can do it for you. People can tell you, they can lecture you, they can yell at you. It doesn't matter. Unless you want it in your mind, like, you're going to be missing a piece. And then you need to surround yourself with people who obviously build you up and push you, because it's hard to do it all on your own. But yeah, if you're not starting with your own mind and your own self, then you're at some point you're going to fall off.
Yep.
Because it's very hard. It's very hard to do something for 12, 13 years consistently, committed every day. I mean, you're an expert at this thing by the time you're 18, 19, 20 years old. Um, you're like PhD level, right? Like, and it's tough. It's tough to do that from when you're a little kid all the way through, and to commit to that.
It is. It's tough. It's overwhelming when you think about the end.
Yeah.
And that's a cancer thought to think about the end. You need to think about today and tomorrow, right? And that's it.
Yeah.
Lots of things go there. Uh, it's a good thing, and also, humbly, it's a awkward thing. But when people ask, "How do I do it? What's my plan?" I can say, "Look it. All right, it says right there, the blueprint to build champion athletes."
Yeah.
And everything you said is all in there. And Tony Robbins will say it starts with hunger. If you know the
Yeah.
great speaker Tony Robbins, it starts with hunger.
Yeah.
So if you're hungry and you're driven, that's always going to push you. Let's
Yeah.
take something unrelated. I want to be a great dad. All right. I'm hungry to be a great dad, right?
Yeah.
You're hungry to be a great Olympian. Now, if you're just training and you're just running around in a circle, you're training hard. You're just running around in a circle. You're working your ass off, but it's pretty stupid, right?
Yeah.
You need the knowledge
Yeah.
of what it takes to be a great diver. So there's a knowledge of, hey, if I'm injured and I got to tape an ankle, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Where do my hands go if I'm doing a handstand and dive off from a handstand position, right off a platform? What's the difference between a springboard and a platform and the different heights and all that stuff? How many
Yeah.
steps? And given your stride, how many steps is it? And then it's the knowledge of how high can I get over that hurdle?
Yeah.
And the hurdle is that piece you got kind of, it's an imaginary line you jump up and over
Yeah.
as you start your dive, right? And well, most people don't know that, but I had a diver in my gym. And so there's the knowledge, and then you could be great in those areas, but you have no support, you're going
Yeah.
to lose. So you talk about, you're driven yourself, but you still need your parents to be driven as well and supportive. And
Yeah.
it's not just the support of the money.
Yeah.
It's the support of, hey, I'm getting up now and doing this and getting you there also. It's
Yeah.
that I'm going to have this much meat in the fridge. I'm going to have this much vegetables and protein and fruit and all this hydration. I'm going to have all that support.
Yeah.
Then there's your coach training you. Then there's your recovery, and then there's all your nutrition that you're putting in, right? So when people ask, how do I do that? It's what are your habits in those 6 areas every day?
Yeah.
And then how do you decide what to do in those habits? You find out your strengths. You keep pushing those strengths up in those areas. That's how you beat people. Then you find your limiting factors. That's how you lose. You bring those up too so you don't lose.
Yeah.
And you constantly, relentlessly push towards that. Yes, you said you were built, God-given, in a hardy fashion, which sounds like you're a thicker person. But I've seen pictures,
I'm not.
and you got
No,
abs
no, no.
as a little kid, right? And that's so. But there's a training component to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about your strength and power training that went in to build a diver, because it looks like all you got to be is super bendy and gymnastics E. And people don't realize those athletes are super strong and powerful
Yeah.
versus their body weight. And it kind of like, oh, that person's just small. I'm like, no, to be able to walk in your hands for a mile like those gymnasts do, like your shoulder and core and back strength has got to be enormous. So talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So in diving, it was really interesting. I didn't start weight training until college. Until then, I did a lot of my own stuff on the side. So it was always like training abs. We do a lot of like trampoline jumping and like dry board, which is diving boards into the mats. Like before college, a lot of it was just training, just physically doing the activity of diving paired with some, like calisthenics and things like that on the side. And then once I got into college, that was when I actually started doing more weight training. Which in diving, a lot of the focus is core strength. So core strength and hip flexor strength is a big part of it, paired with like leg strength, right? So we're looking at our glutes, our quads, our hamstrings. Arm strength for me, I'm a springboard diver. It doesn't matter as much. I need to make sure that I have stability around my shoulders because I'm moving them a lot. I'm doing a lot of this. But a platform diver, they have a lot more strain on their shoulders and things like that. So they had to be a little bit more concerned about their shoulder strength than I did. So a lot of our workouts were really focused again on, building up that core strength, building up the leg strength, working on vertical jumps, things like that. I actually started building there was a period where I was retired and I started building my own workouts based off of kind of what our weight coach had done and things I had read online. And the workouts I started building actually made my vertical jump better than it had ever been in college. So whatever I was doing was working. But yeah, so that was a really big thing, a really big focus on power. You don't want to be bulky, right? So in my sport, and I think that was actually part of my thing. I think I got too bulky going into the Olympics. So I was lifting too much. And that was kind of a fault of me. I should have talked to my weight coach more, things like that. Because the thing is, in diving, if you get too bulky, then you have more weight. So it's a lot harder to flip. It's a lot harder to move. It's a lot harder to do different things like that. And so you need to build strength. You need to be able to jump really high. You need to be able to move quickly, but you don't want too much mass that will then restrict you and make you slow. So it's a balance. You want to be pretty light, like
Right.
you don't want to be so light that you can't bend the diving board, but you want to be light enough that you don't feel heavy. So, for me, my weight was always like I always want to be between 120, 125 was my like prime weight, where I could bend the board, but then I didn't feel too heavy. So it was kind of knowing what was right for you and your build and knowing how to work with the people around you and things like that, to make sure that you had the strength in the right places and that you're not just strong, but you're also healthy, and not injured. Because if you're injured, then it makes it a lot harder. If you're diving with back pain, it's not going to be good because you're not going to have as much flexibility or mobility that you need, and things like that. So you're always trying to maintain strength, but then also not push yourself too hard so that you're dealing with injuries that will then impact your ability to flip and twist and do all these things you have to do.
So this is going to be a fun part for me because I like the strength training, the power training, things like that. When I had Shani on, that was a pro volleyball player. She was in between two different colleges, and she got hurt. I can't remember if it was an ACL or an ankle, but she had time off for a while. It's kind of semi-retired, like you said. You were in between Olympics, and she did a ton of strength training,
Yeah.
and which she had never done before. She comes back from the injury, and she was like, "My vertical was so much higher. The landing and absorbing force was so much easier because she could apply force better because she was
Yeah.
stronger. So then she could absorb force. Which, if you can't apply force, you can't absorb it.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's just physics, right? So then I talked to these athletes and parents of these different sports, and they're like, "I don't want to get too bulky. We don't have time. We're doing all this other sport specific training to lift." So then there's a piece that's a limiting factor, like we talked about. That, in my opinion, is absolutely missing for most athletes. So my first thought when you said, "Well, I didn't start till college," I thought, "Well, man, what if you started in high school?"
Yeah.
Number two, when they say I don't want to get bulky, here's some things that people don't know. When you lift high reps, people think, well, it's safer. It's high reps, right? It's high reps. Well, at the end of that set of say 10 reps, the 10th rep is supposed to be very, very hard. Otherwise, it's not useful. If
Yeah.
you could do 10 reps and if you could do 20, but you stopped at 10, then it's too light for it to be useful and impactful because there's not enough stimulus for you to change. Now,
Yeah.
you start doing high reps, this hypertrophy stuff, 8, 10, 12, 20 reps, 25 reps. What that does is it builds size. The
Yeah.
muscle fibers aren't very tight together. They're
Yeah.
just they're bigger and fluffier. There's more water, right? So then you have bigger size, but you're not stronger.
Yeah.
If you do absolute strength things like 5 reps, 3 reps, 1 reps, those muscles get really, really tight, which then kind of also increases the limit to your mobility. But you don't weigh as much because you're not building that size.
Yeah.
So you cannot be necessarily that much heavier, but definitely stronger. And I got to believe that if you want a better vertical jump, well, you got to be able to deadlift, you got to be able to clean, you got to be able to squat, and you got to do all these jumps because
Yeah.
you're exerting force into the ground. And the way you do that is with resistance training.
Yeah.
And then it's always can I get, what's that optimum of each? Like I can get my son way stronger at 300 pounds, but 300-pound linebacker is playing nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's all how intensely can I train if and only if I get a return on investment to be this athlete.
Yeah.
Because it's not a weightlifting. You're not in the sport of weightlifting. You're not in the sport of powerlifting.
Yeah.
You're in the sport of
And that
diving.
was and that was the thing. It was like, I wasn't trying to squat like the heaviest
Sure.
weight, right? Like I would do like 95K, right?
Hmm.
Which is like for me, like that was good and that was hard and that gave me strength. And then I would do, a set of, a few isometric squats and then take like a 30-minute break and then go do my vertical jump, right? And then I'm like, I have my glutes super activated and
Hmm.
I'm working on strength and then like power and um explosiveness and things like that. So like we had these things and it was very much like lower rep, higher weight. You're not just going out there doing, I'm doing 10 squats at like 50K, you're not getting anything done. Um and so I think like yeah, and there was a lot of that too where it was a lot of yeah, like you're building up to that heavier weight and week by week, we would do sets, we would do 4 weeks. So the first week is a warm-up week where you would have lighter weight and you're getting your body used to those exercises and then each week you would build up, you make the weight heavier
Mm.
and the reps would decrease, heavier reps decrease and then the last week, you have 2 reps or 3 reps, but now you're at your peak weight, right? And you're like training your muscles up and then we would have a little bit of a down week where we would start a new set, working a new set of muscle groups. And so that was kind of the process, the cycle. It was 4-week cycles because you don't want to do the same exercises over a long period of time because then you start losing some of the benefit of that. So like we would cycle, okay, like what parts of the muscle are we focusing on in this 4-week cycle? And then what parts or what muscles are we focusing on in this next 4-week cycle? Um, and so just kind of rotating, making sure that we're kind of taking a holistic approach to building a strong body. And I did that, I still do that. I still write my own workouts today and I've been a little lazy following the Olympics. But I still write in 4-week workout sets with supersets. Um, figuring out what muscles do I want to work on, what sets do I want to work on. And that's kind of how I that's how my weight coach approached it. So now that's how I approach it. And I really liked that approach.
They say success leaves clues, and yeah, I got to believe, from what you told me, 125 pounds, you're about a 55 kilo weight, and you're squatting around 100 kilos, so almost 2 times body weight squat, and that's going to be outstanding for any kind of power or jumping. So,
Yeah.
did you need to be 3 times body weight? Nah, no, probably not. Doing that much extra work to get up there, is it going to have that return? Probably not. So having that knowledge, super beneficial. Having
Yeah.
the approach that I'm going to keep working in an area until I start to plateau and then switch out so you can still maintain progress. That's outstanding also. That's great. And then now you have a baseline of knowledge of how to continue to train yourself um, going forward. Let me ask you this. When I have the thought of, hey, this is an Olympic athlete, because I'm not too intelligent on a lot of things. I'm thinking, well, shoot, man, Allison's. I bet they just keep writing her checks to keep training. They just keep writing her checks to go compete. And here's all your stuff, and here's a car, and all these things, right? So,
Yeah.
and in some sports, it's probably true. Ones that make more money, and some sports, it's not as true. And I'm finding out when I'm reading about you, like, yeah, I finished over in Tokyo, and then decided I'm not gonna, I'm done with school, got my master's. It's time to make a living.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, no, you're back to training for the Olympics and making a living.
Yeah.
So talk about the balance of like a pro athlete in the basketball. It's just basketball,
Yeah.
right? But a pro athlete sometimes for Olympians is not just that.
And
It's
it's for a majority, right?
right.
So
So talk about that.
yeah, there's probably only, I always say the 1% of the 1%, right? But a majority of Olympians, especially in the US, like in other countries, Olympians will often be considered part of the military. And so they actually get paid. And they have salaries that can support them and their training. And then once they're done competing, they have some obligation to the military. We don't have that in the United States. And so basically, kind of how it works is that's why the college sports universe is so important for some of these Olympic sports, because that is an ability for an athlete to train and actually kind of get paid or be supported to train for the Olympics. But then once you graduate from college, you're basically on your own. In a sport like mine, to get paid by your sport, you have to be like competing on the international circuit. And so basically like, but that's like $750 a month, right? Or $500 a month. It's like this money in Austin, Texas is paying for like my gas and some groceries, right? You can't live off of that. And then okay, say you go to an international meet and you medal, then it's like okay, your stipend might go up to 1,500. Okay, that's still barely paying for rent. Um, and so basically the amount of money that you're paid in a sport like mine is like you can't live off of your sport at all. And sponsorships are really hard to come by because again, it's a small sport. So normally you would say, okay, you know what, sport doesn't pay me that much, but I'll just go get a sponsorship from this brand or this brand or this brand. And it's like you can't really do that unless you have like a bazillion followers on social media. Um, and a lot of times you'll see that where an athlete isn't that good, but then they'll have a ton of followers on social media and they'll get all the deals. And so it's this very difficult kind of position to be in. And so I knew when I made the decision to go back and train for Paris, I was like, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do this. And I was already working. I was working full time, and I was like, I can't work full time and train full time. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I can't do that. So basically what happened was I was like, I still need to be making money though. So I went and I talked to my company and I said, hey, I'm training for the Olympics. Would y'all support me on this? And they said, well, think about it. They came back to me. They said, we're going to cut your salary in half, but we're going to let you work part time. And so that was a really big thing. So I was still going to get paid something, right? I was still getting paid something. And I had just come out of retirement, so I wasn't making any money from USA Diving. So it was just at that time, it was just okay. I'm making this amount of money from my job, and so I that was what I did. I kept working, and then one of my clients, but they're amazing. It's a company named Oro Global. They're like a fintech company. They came forward and they said, "Hey, we will sponsor you. We're going to make up the other half of your salary." So that was pretty amazing because then my salary basically went from being cut in half to now I had full-time salary to be able to train for the Olympics. So
Mm.
in my own way, I had kind of not me. I feel like God really laid the pathway out for me. But I had my support and it was amazing. And then I went to Winter Nationals that winter and ended up qualifying for World Championships because I won two events after literally coming out of retirement like 4 months prior. It was the craziest thing. And then they put me, because of that, USA Diving started paying me, X amount of money. So it was kind of cool how it worked out, where financially it did work out, but I had to work. Like I had to work, and that was that. And if I wouldn't have worked, I would have been on the street.
Mm.
And luckily I have my family. My family supported me. So like I lived at home, which was a huge benefit to me. A lot of people don't have that, right? And so it's like you either have family members that can support you or you are not doing it. In many cases. And that's just the name of the game as a professional athlete training for the Olympics in the United States. And it's tough.
It is tough. And people say it's tough. It kind of that's a numbing answer sometimes. Hey man, it's tough. It's tough to get there, or you gotta be hungry, right? That's kind of just what does that mean? What does that mean? And since I'm big dork nerd, I always want to quantify things, right?
Yeah.
And I love how Mickey Marotti, he's the head strength coach of all sports performance, assistant athletic director at Ohio State. And he's like, if we're doing anything, we measure it. We measure it.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of value there. But anyways, where I'm going with next is you're coming through the second around the Olympics. Take me through, like it's Sunday. How do you set up your week for success with, I'm going to say professionally and professionally, not personally, professionally, because you're a professional athlete and a professional worker. How do you set yourself up professionally that week And then what's the day to day like grind as you're preparing? Because there's not much margin now because you're
Yeah.
trying to win everything and still stay employed, right? So take me through that. What's that like?
It's I mean, every week was normally the same. So it wasn't like I went into the week with a ton of prep other than thinking about, what am I going to eat or like what meal prep do I need to do this week. But I think for me it was really like, my schedule was very cut and dry. Was it what it was, and it stayed that way. So, I get up at 5:30 or 5, actually, I guess 5. So I get up at 5 a.m. on Monday, go to morning practice for diving, starts at 6. Um, for morning practice, I would walk from the pool to the weight room. I would get done with weights at 9 or 9:15, and then I would shower, change, walk to the parking garage, which was about ten minutes, get in my car, drive to work, 15 minutes. I would work from, 10 to, I guess, 2. From 10 to 2, I would get back in my car, drive back to the pool. I would dive from 5 to, no, 3, sorry. I get on the pool deck at 2:30, I guess. Be on the pool deck from 2:30 to 5. And then I would leave, and normally in the evening, I would have some kind of social thing. So Monday night, I had a Bible study called BSF that I was involved in. And then Tuesday night, same thing, for a different organization. And so normally at the night, that was my social time where I said, I'm going to put work away, I'm going to put my sport away, and I'm going to enjoy community and people. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that was the same schedule. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I didn't have morning practice for diving, so I would go to the gym. I would do cardio for an hour or an hour and a half. Then I would go to work. Work from, I don't know, I would work from 8 to 2. And then I'd same thing, be in the pool 3 to 5. So basically, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday were my more intense days. Tuesday, Thursday was a little bit more chill. That was where I would work a full 7-hour day. Not a full 7-hour day isn't a full day, but to me at that time it was a full 7-hour day. That was kind of my bigger days. And then Saturday was just I would have a Saturday practice, and then Sunday was my rest day. So, that was what I did. I did that for pretty much a year straight. From 5 to basically 9. My day was packed, and I don't know. I just did it. You just do it.
You just do it.
Like and people don't even realize, like people don't realize, like they see you come and go and things like that, but they don't realize how much goes into it. But yeah, you just do it, and
Best
it worked for
best
me.
best company slogan in athletics all time, right?
Yeah.
Just do it for Nike. Do what was the typical calorie intake?
So this is a controversial thing about me, I guess. Not controversial, but I am not a huge calorie counter.
Protein intake,
Yeah, I
anything?
I was very much like, um after my workout, I would get my 25, gram protein
Yep.
shake
Yep.
or protein bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then at lunch, I always had protein, right? So I would switch between chicken, fish, and steak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I always made sure I was getting protein there. And then at night, I would normally have a little bit of a lighter meal, um, which would be, yeah, probably a little bit more protein and some vegetables. But my thing was always eat from the earth, and try to get some kind of protein and vegetable at every meal. And I that was kind of just how I did it. Um, Different people have different philosophies. I look back and wonder, sometimes I'm like, should have I had it, should I have more specifically gotten a nutritionist, or should have I counted my calories more? Maybe, maybe not. If I went to train for the LA Olympics, maybe I would do that. Um, I think different people are different. I never really did the calorie counting thing that granularly. I was very much a kind of like listen to your body. If my body is telling me I need fruit, I eat fruit. If my body's telling me I need red meat, I eat red meat. So I think that for me, it's always just been about how I can be in tune with my body and what it's telling me I need. Um, Not everyone can do that. Not everyone should do that, but that was just kind of how I approached it. And, I built good strength. Um, so yeah, but as a numbers guy, you're probably like, oh no.
Best thing about, the best nutrition plan is the one that you stick to,
Yeah.
right? So it's not necessarily for me that, hey, I know I had 100 grams of protein today or 2,000 calories. It's that I know I'm eating this much meat at these meals and these protein shakes or bars, and I'm getting stronger. The
Yeah.
most critical part of working with a nutritionist or me or another person who's working on your food is that feedback loop. Like
Yeah.
all that nutritionist or I would ever do is come up with an educated guess on what to do.
Yeah.
Have this many calories, this many grams of protein, this much creatine. Here's your supplements, your fish oil, etc. All right, you're taking in all this. How do I feel? I still feel sluggish. And you go, well, I need more fruit. Yeah, because you need some more carbs. Or hey, man, I'm lifting and I'm not making gains and I'm really sore. Oh, I'm probably deficient here. So you're doing the most important part. You're taking what you're doing. It's just
Yeah.
not as precise, but you're seeing, hey, how do I respond to that? And then you adjust. That's the part that wins. It's the
Yeah.
being knowing how you're responding and then adjusting. That's the part. And then you just, oh well, I keep doing the same plan. I keep getting better. Shoot, man, ride that horse until it dies, right? You
Yeah.
just keep, so that's outstanding. Tokyo Olympics. Just what was your quantifiable results in your events?
Um, so I competed one event in Tokyo. It was the women's 3-meter springboard.
Okay,
And this is gonna be hard for me to say, but I will say it and follow it up with a story. So I go into the event and I ended up getting last.
okay.
The reason why how actually have you seen any of that story?
Yeah, I don't ask a lot of questions I don't know the answers to.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I don't know.
That's a
I can
lawyer
go into
thing that
that.
your brother probably talks about. Lawyers, they don't do that, right? So, go.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
So that was my event. Which is one thing I want to say, which is so crazy because I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I was like, yeah, like looking back on the Olympics is so weird because a lot of the girls who finaled, like I have beaten like multiple times in my career. And it's funny because you go into these things, and I think that was what made it hard for me was it's not the result, but it's knowing what the result could have been. So I
Mm,
think there's always like something that's difficult about that when you look and you see um when you see that. But for me, basically what happened was there's 5 dives in diving that you do, and each dive counts, right? So you get points for each dive. And it's not like another sport, like long jump or high jump or pole vault or something where you can just scratch your worst and be like, oh no, I'm just going to take my best. No, every single thing counts. Um, and so I went up for my very first dive in that event. It was called an inward 2.5 pike. And up until that point, in practice, it had been my best dive. Like I was so excited to start on this dive because it was like, I know I can hit this. And I go up, set up on the board. I go in the air. I remember being in the air and being like, wow, that felt like a good takeoff. And all of a sudden, my feet come down and hit the diving board. Completely stops my rotation. And I just go into like a little ball and I just hit the water.
mm,
And I just remember hitting the water and thinking,
fuck.
I was like, what just happened? Like, I've
Right.
done this dive 1,000 times.
Yeah.
This has never happened to me in my life, ever, ever. And I remember thinking, I made it all this way. Like, if you look back on my story, I came out of retirement in like July of 2023 with less than a year before Olympic trials. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to make the Olympics. Like, this is crazy, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. and I go to nationals, in 4 months I win two national titles, make it to world championships, compete at world championships, final in both events, qualify the United States Olympic spot so the United States can compete in the Olympics. I go on to compete at a series of other competitions where I medaled and I did really well. And I make it to the Olympics. And up until this point, this is like the story of like a lifetime. It's like, oh my gosh, like all the impossible things have become possible. Everything that I didn't think could happen has happened. I got my job let me work part-time. I got a sponsorship. Like the whole story was building up to this amazing Olympic moment where this is my time. This is when I'm going to medal. This is when I'm going to do the thing, right? And then my first dive off the board, this happens. And all of a sudden my emotions are like, wait, this isn't how the story is supposed to end. This isn't, the way the hero's journey ends, right? The hero gets to the end of the story after all this trial and they win, right? And I just remember getting out of the pool thinking, like, I kind of laughed. There's a clip of me somewhere. And I kind of looked at my coach and I laughed. And I was like, well, here we are. Like, I don't know. This is happening for a reason. And I remember I looked down at my feet and they were bleeding and my heels were bruised. And I thought in that moment, my coach said, you can scratch. We're going to scratch you. You can scratch. And I said, no, I am not scratching this event. I am finishing this event. I don't care how much pain I'm in. I don't care what anyone says. I'm finishing this stupid event. And so I remember I go back in and I was like, I was sitting by my bag and I just remember like trying not to cry. I was like, don't cry, Allison. You're going to finish the event. And I got up and it was the longest hour and a half of my life. And I dive after dive. I had four more dives. I was in so much pain, emotionally, physically, just trying to get through this event, but it was the craziest thing because every time I stepped on the board, the whole arena would just erupt because it didn't even matter how I competed. It didn't matter how I did. People were just getting behind me for continuing to go and fight through. And it was so cool, just like existing in that space and fighting until the end. And then I remember the event ended and I was like, I just want to hug my mom. And I went to pick up my credential, which is, your credential that gets you into the pool and all of that stuff. And they were like, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. And they were like, you've been selected for a random drug test. And I just thought the humor of the moment was so funny because I was like, of all the people to select for a random drug test, like me, like, I'm like, what do you think I'm taking? It clearly didn't work.
Right.
And I just remember in that moment just kind of laughing and through the tears. I was laughing through the tears. And I had to go proceed to walk through a media line, and everyone wanted to talk to me because I was the story of the day. And I'm, trying not to cry as they're asking me questions about what happened. And I'm trying to formulate a story around these thoughts. And just remember in that moment saying, I hope that somebody watching today was encouraged by my decision to keep fighting until the end. And I hope that that could inspire somebody. And that line ended up being taken and used as a quote in many news articles down the line, which was so cool. And I remember I went through that media line and I finished, was about to go get drug tested, and they came to me and they're like, there are more outlets that want to talk to you. So I had to go back through the media line, tell the story, tell the quote again, just again, talking through the pain, talking through the emotion. The drug test took like an hour. I finally got done. And then I remember I was like, now I can go talk to my family. And this was the longest trek of my life. It was from the pool to where the spectators could stand outside of the arena. And it was probably a quarter of a mile dirt path. I was all alone. All the fans, all the people were gone at this point. And I had my backpack on and I was carrying a duffel. And my feet again bruised, bleeding. My shoes were like rubbing. They were these terrible Nike shoes, and they were rubbing basically not calluses, blisters into the top of my feet. And so I was in even more pain, just add pain to it. I just remember I was walking and just like crying and I got like halfway there and I just like dropped my bags and I just wanted to like curl up into a ball and just in that moment I was like I can't do this. Like I can't make it to my family. I can't. And these guards ran up to me and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine." And I picked my bag back up and I just kept limping, like step by step to my family. And I got to them and they hugged me. And it was this really emotional moment where, it was so hard because, everything leading up to this moment went right. And then the moment that mattered the most couldn't have gone more wrong in every possible way, from the competition to the drug test to all of it. And I just remember that night going home crying, just thinking, like, how could this happen? How could I make it this far and I'll be this crushed? Like, this is so embarrassing. Like, everybody saw this. Everyone's gonna think that this is just me. This is what I'm capable of, and it's not. And it's so hard. So hard to grapple with that, right? And I struggled. And then I remember 2 days later, my brother told me, "Hey, Allison, you shouldn't look up your name on like Google." And I was like, "No, I don't want to see all the terrible things that are being written about me and the embarrassing US athlete who failed, whatever." And I remember I looked at my name and it was like article after article was like truly like positive. And sharing how I finished and sharing my quotes. And I had written a personal blog post and they had all linked to that. And faith is really important to me. My faith is really important. And I had shared that. And so it was this incredible like testimony. It became a really cool testimony. And I heard later on that the commentators were talking about my faith during the event and all of this. And so it was this crazy moment where my testimony and my story was shared in a way it never would have been able to be shared before. And if I would have made it to the final and gotten fourth place, nobody would have heard this story the way they heard it. And so when I looked at it that way, I started realizing selfishly, we want things to go a certain way for us because we want the acclaim and we want the attention and we want to be able to say we did this, and our pride is caught up in it. But when you take your pride out of a result, when you take your pride out of something and you look deeper into the impact that it had, when I took my pride out, I realized that like this moment was actually incredible in the sense that this really dark moment in my life became something that inspired people, became something that moved people. And now I can use this story to inspire people. And, if I can fail on the world's biggest stage and still get up and talk about it and still get up and move on and still get up and know that I have purpose and worth, then you can do the same. And so I think truly one of the darkest moments in my life became one of the most powerful stories. And um and I truly hope that people can see, like, things happen in life, but you're more than that. And even making it to the Olympics, like even having the courage to train for the Olympics in the first place and work part-time, like all of those steps along the way were incredible moments and incredible successes. And you can't lose sight of that just because one thing didn't go the way that you wanted it to go or the way you thought it deserved or should have gone. Um,
Mm.
so yeah.
Yeah, the question was, how'd you do? And the answer simply is, I came in last. But it's so much more than that. And so, you know, it's why everyone is cheering for Rocky in the first movie,
Yeah.
which I know you're young. I don't know if you've even seen it.
I feel like
Oh
I've
no.
definitely
Oh
heard of it.
no. Oh
I think I have
no.
seen it. But I think it's been a long time.
Oh, so you know what happens?
Well, of course he wins, right? Doesn't he? Isn't it like a brutal battle at the end though? And it's like
Okay,
he's
stop.
gonna lose and then he like keeps going. I'm trying to remember. It's like
That's a good effort. All right, so uh, no, he doesn't. And going into, and this wasn't what the crux of your story. Going into the fight, he knows he's such an overwhelming underdog, and it's similar to you in that after you take a zero in your first dive, you can't do anything.
yeah.
He's such an overwhelming underdog, but he's like, hey, I need to go the distance. I got to do this for me. So I know that I'm not a loser, right? And so he gets knocked down again late in the fight. And even his coaches are saying, stay down, you know? And he's like, no, got to go all the way in, right? And so, you know, if you go to the theater back in the 70s, right? People are standing up and cheering like they're at a game, right? And so when you go on that platform or that springboard again and the whole crowd sees externally your internal resilience, this person's in pain and going, right? So it's so moving, right? And people, it's, you know, it's they romanticize it and everything. Everyone loves to talk about Band of Brothers and, you know, Bastogne when there's so much pain because it's so impressive. Because most people get hit with adversity, big ones like that, and they think or feel I can't do it, and they stop. But
Well,
they see someone else doing it, right? And
every
you can't.
single competitor I talked to was like, "Why did you keep going? I would have stopped."
Yeah,
And even
right,
like a judge came up to me after the event and was like, "That was incredible." Like, and it's crazy because like a judge came up and they're like, "We know what you're capable of, and that was really hard for us to watch, but like it was so commendable." And like judges don't do that. They're not supposed to do that.
right.
Um, and coaches came up to me and talked to me and so it was crazy because I did the thing that a lot of people wouldn't have done. And I think people like do recognize that and there's power in that.
You know, when we had Pat Ivy on, is again that, and I'm about this. I like winning. I like beating people, right? I like the extrinsic thing, the thing that's outside of me. The pride kicks in.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone wants to win, right?
Yeah.
But if you're more driven by internal things, so it sounds like, or it was, you know, you had both. Yeah, I want to win
Yeah.
the whole thing. God damn it, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
But also, I recognize that there's tremendous value in this lesson for the rest of my life. So if you ask yourself, man, why the hell did this happen to me? Instead,
Yeah.
you ask yourself, why did this happen for me
Yeah.
in that moment? And then you use it. You
Yeah.
use it going forward. So that's huge. I, I'm sure you've watched other events in Olympics, and I'm sure you met other Olympians. And you're like, man, that person's cool. That person's kind of a douchebag. Or this moment, if you would have seen this, is super fucking cool, right? For me, hands down, '96. I'm in my fraternity at Purdue, and I'm running a small business that summer, and I hurt my back really badly. I got a disc that's out my back, so I can barely move. So I'm on the couch one of these days trying to just recover so I can get back to work. And I'm watching '96 Olympics, and it's women's gymnastics, and women's gymnastics is usually really competitive for the United States. And that motherfucker Carrie Strug smashes her ankle on that vault, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, they need her. She's batting cleanup. She's the last one of the 10 to go, and because she's the best in that area. And so she even says, "Hey, I want to be this person. I want the pressure. I want the team to count on me."
Yeah.
If you listen to other interviews, and she's off a little bit, just like you were off a little bit, and smashes her ankle. But luckily, there, you know, if you can go again and get a good one, then it counts. The bad one doesn't count. So, like you said about other sports, and so she's limping it off, and Belle Crowley's like this kind of coaching her through this, and she's just like, you get, and so she's running full tilt on a smashed up ankle, and then hits this vault and sticks that landing, and I
Yeah.
can't get off my couch, and I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, you know, get it, take it, right? And I'm just so excited because this little 5 foot, maybe even nothing chick smashes this event to win the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my god, that perseverance, I love that. It's the most attractive quality in people sometimes. And
Yeah.
so that people see that in you, and it's like, oh yeah, shit, look at her, she's going. Yes, that's awesome. So tremendous, you know, praise to you, and it's humbling to watch people do that. And I'm so thankful that whenever I see things like that, it's like, oh shit, I could probably go a little harder. I could persevere through some pain. I could take a loss and keep going. Look at this other girl did.
Yeah.
She did. Look at her. She's in her 20s, right? Just getting going. Look at
Yeah.
that. Maybe I could too. So the
Yeah.
inspirational piece. Oh man, she leaned into her faith to get through this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
And as you set that example and you talk about it, so then I hear the example. So your leadership is seen, it's felt, and it's heard.
Yeah.
And that gets people to move forward. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. What's next for Allison? Well, what's your master's in, real quick?
Yeah, so master's is in marketing and advertising
And
with a
what are you doing? You're consulting. Like, what's that mean? for you?
Yeah, so great question. I don't even work in marketing and advertising
Perfect.
really at all, but I do use elements of my master's degree. And so I do basically strategic communications consulting, and people are like, what the heck does that mean? And I'm like, okay, I break it down. We have three areas of work. The first is branding, so that's logo design, positioning, messaging around a brand, helping a brand communicate with the world. The second one is market research, so helping an organization understand their brand health, how they're doing, what people think about them, how they can improve their communications, things like that. And then the last one is crisis management. So helping a brand either prepare for something really bad to happen, or handle something really bad after it happens. So yeah, so that's kind of what I do. And
What about
it's
like good crisis management? Hey man, I'm about to take off. How do I handle that? Do you guys do that
I
too?
mean, we help actually. We work with CEOs quite a bit. CEOs, executives, university presidents, people like that, where maybe they're about to get hired or take on that role, or maybe they're trying to reposition themselves, and we help them communicate, build their personal brand, things like that. So,
Okay,
yeah,
awesome. We coming out of retirement again? Are we gonna go again? We running in the back or what? What's going on?
that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. I
Come on,
think
girl. Give it. The whole world needs to know.
the whole world needs to know. I don't know. I currently don't feel called to go to the LA Olympics. A lot of people say I need to get redemption. I don't think that's a reason. Um, so yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. As of now, I'm enjoying life. I'm working, I'm staying fit, and if I feel called to go back, I will go back. But like I said, if you're gonna do it, your heart has to be in it, and I will not do something, especially something with the intensity of the Olympics, unless I'm fully committed. So
Right, it's all in or not at all.
yeah.
So are we still lifting weights? We still doing cardio? Are we swimming? Or if you go on that platform and people say, "Holy shit, Allison's going on that platform," and you just launch off with a cannonball, right? And you just do one of those, and then
Yeah,
hop on out. So are you still training just in general, just to be healthy and fit, or what?
yeah, I'm still training to be healthy and fit.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a lot of stair stepper these days. It's pretty terrible. But it's really good for you.
Any
Um,
dives?
what?
Have you done any dives?
Actually, one. Well, I've touched a diving board one time since the Olympics. It's because
Okay.
I had a party. All my friends were like, "We want to dive," so I had a diving party, and a bunch of people, my friends came, and I was
I'd
teaching
be
them.
drunk and dead. I break my
Oh,
neck off the board.
no alcohol, no
Right.
alcohol at the pool. I was teaching them how to dive, and they made me get in the water and do some stuff. So I did. It wasn't good. It was not good. Um, but it was fun. But yeah, since then I haven't. I've just kind of stayed away. I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm
Yeah.
not ready yet. So
Uh, do you like coaching people or not so much?
I do. I do actually. I have a lesson today in a couple hours.
Gotcha.
I have these three little girls. I love coaching them. They're so fun. I would never coach full time. I've had so many people tell me, "Oh, you need to be a coach, Allison." I'm like, I don't have it in me. I could be good at it, but it's not my.
Doesn't drive you.
It's yeah. I'm like, I loved coaching private lessons. I'm like, I'll see you on the weekend.
Yeah.
But not every day.
Gotcha. Texas going to win the whole thing?
No, I don't think so.
Who's winning the whole thing?
I don't know. I don't know who's gonna win the whole thing, but
Ohio
I
State.
love Texas. I think Texas is great. I don't think this is I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I don't know who's gonna win, but I don't know if it'll be Texas.
Great
We can't
answer.
seem to beat Georgia, so we gotta beat Georgia.
Uh, we already know about Christmas. Are you any New Year's resolutions, or more importantly, like, hey, in 2025, I want to do this?
Actually, okay, yes. I'm not a huge New Year's resolution person because I'm like, just start
Yes.
like today. It's not.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
um,
Yes.
but this year I'm so excited. So part of the Olympic journey that was so special was I met a woman. Her name is Mary, and she started an organization about 20 years ago called Missions of Hope International and builds schools and hospitals in Kenya. Um, and has truly changed the lives of thousands and thousands of kids and people. And she's considered a national hero in Kenya. Like she truly is amazing. And I met her on a plane, which I love. It's
Mm.
amazing. It's a very Allison thing to do. Um, And so during my time in Paris, I was trying to raise awareness and money for this organization. And now I'm actually going to go to Kenya in May of this year. But before I go, I have decided I'm going to host a fundraiser event here in Austin, which I've never hosted a fundraiser before. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I felt called by God to do it. And I'm like, okay, whatever, we'll see what happens. And so the goal is to raise $90,000 to build a medical center in a small village in Kenya. Um, that currently has no medical support other than a witch doctor. Um, so that is my mission for 2025 is to successfully host this event and successfully raise this money or as much of it as I possibly can. And the event's gonna be in person, but I'm also gonna probably do some virtual things as well where people aren't in Austin and they want to donate, they can. So yeah, it's happening on April 26th. Still a
Whoa.
lot of stuff to figure out, but I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
426. Is
Yeah.
there a activity associated with it?
An activity.
Like a 5K run for charity, or, where, everyone's doing 100 push-ups, you raise money, or, whatever.
There is not.
Is
I've
it an
considered
auction?
I've considered potentially trying to add an element, but I've never done a fundraiser before in the first place. So I'm like, I'm trying to get wealthy people to one place at one time on one night, and I'm like focused on that. And I'm not about to make them do 100 push-ups.
Sure.
Um,
So maybe it's a dinner and big cost to go to the dinner and you're just asking for money. Like that's a thing. That's cool.
yeah. But the woman, so Mary is actually going to be there. So I'm gonna interview her.
Hmm.
So her and I are going to be there. So there's something about hearing her story from her that's just exudes or it invokes emotion and a sense it's just crazy like because she's been there and she's seen it
Yeah.
and there's something about the way she tells the story and so that's a really big thing is just yeah inviting people and then inviting people to hear her story um
Gotcha.
and from there if they feel called to
Right.
donate so
Write a
be
check.
it
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
yeah
That's awesome.
yeah
My gym does a number of events. Breast cancer is a big one. We raised just under 50 this year. The MRF, we do MRF for military. Um, we let student athletes that have had some real struggles come and train, and we support them.
yeah
Next year, next year I get to, I don't have to, I get to do this swim to help raise money with a bunch of knuckleheads. So
yeah
things that are outside you, awesome, awesome. I love that stuff. Is there So I have this rapid fire questions for you, but I have some extra ones I didn't even write because you're different. Uh, obviously a negative could have been that you cracked your feet, right? Is there something at the Paris Olympics you thought, man, that was super cool, or this person was super cool, and then something else, man, that wasn't cool, or that wasn't anything what I lived up to thinking it would be?
yeah I think the Olympics is big like it's never as big as you think it's gonna be, like, you build it up in your mind and you're like you get there and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, it's amazing and it's cool. I think that's one thing though, like, I would challenge, like, if you're an athlete training for the Olympics, like, it's amazing and it's a really cool experience, but also at the end of the day, it's like it's another competition. So that's one thing, but it is truly incredible and amazing. Like, opening ceremonies were so cool, like, being on the boat with LeBron James and Steph Curry and in the rain and it was like Noah Lyles was there. Like it was crazy kind of just being there in that moment and having that feeling and that was a super cool thing. The opening and closing ceremonies are always incredible. Um, Another thing, I did this series on Instagram called Hidden Gems, Cool Places and Hidden Gems in the Olympic Village. And the Olympic Village is full of a lot of really cool stuff. And so, if you're interested in that, it gives you a little insight into what the athletes get access to in the village. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, um, if I can get it, this is so I think it was Corona. They had like a bar um, non-alcoholic beer bar in the village. And this is like a very heavy like metal bottle and engraved in it is like my name and a few lines and you can't really see it that well here, but that's one of the things that we could just do. You could just go and get this bottle.
That's
And
cool.
So yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff like that that, you can just do in the village and get. And I can't grab them right now, but I got these little um like mail, what are they? What do you call like a postage stamp with my
Yeah.
face on it, and it has
Wow.
Paris 2024, stuff like that. So
That's
yeah,
neat.
there's a lot of really cool stuff that they have. And then Paris itself was amazing. And we all the Olympians got cards so we could take the trains. What do you call those? Not subway. They have
Yeah, like the
metro,
metro
whatever.
or the, yeah.
Yeah, we could take all the metro for free wherever we wanted all throughout the city. And so yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff like that where the city shuts down for you, and the athletes are the center of attention for a period of time. So
Was there someone cool that you were like, oh man, I can't believe I just met this guy or this girl?
I think for me, definitely like meeting LeBron James was super cool.
A little taller than you?
Yeah, a little taller. Yeah, LeBron James and Steph Curry were probably like the most famous, like cool people that I met. Other than that, not really. I mean, there were definitely like a lot of cool people in the village. People that I saw, like Simone Biles. It was cool. Like she was there, just like there in the village.
Yep.
So yeah, so there were definitely cool moments like that. But I mean, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this life-changing thing
Sure. Yeah.
happened. Well, other than the life-changing thing of me hitting my feet on the board, but
Well, the thing is that you belong there, so it's not like you're out of your element. Like these
yeah,
people are at the top of the food chain, and so are you. So that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, it- Outside of any of the water events, what's your favorite event to watch?
Ooh, um, I love track and field, mainly because I know a decent amount of them. And I just think it's really cool to watch. Um, People do amazing things. Like I just think like the sprint events, pole vault,
Mm.
those are just really cool to watch. We ended up getting into rugby a little bit,
Oh,
because the US women's team, obviously with Iona and them, like that was really cool. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, even archery. Like you'll be like on TV, like archery shooting, things like that. Like it'll just be on TV, and you're just like, in that moment, it's the coolest thing.
did you see the
Um,
dude from wherever, maybe Ukraine or Poland? I don't know, shooting
yeah,
guns.
Turkey. You just
Turkey, right? Just sitting there, like as soon as he's done,
yeah,
he just lights up a cigarette, and he's
yeah,
just sitting there, just knocking it out, James Bond style, just killing it.
it's crazy.
That's awesome, super awesome. Um, I can't remember this sprinter's name. I'm in love with her personality, having never met her. Is it Shakari?
Yeah,
She's a
probably.
tiny little sprinter, and when
Yeah,
she's beating people, she's looking at them as she's beating them, and she's walking as she's going across the line. Have you seen that? Seen those
yeah.
clips?
She's
And I
like,
was
yeah.
like, oh, she's like looking at him with this, I own you, this disdain that I just took it off. And I was like, oh man, that girl's awesome. So if you know her, I need to meet her for sure and have her on the show.
I do not know her. I
Well,
did like briefly meet her and cross paths with her, but I do not know her personally.
we need to do the 6 levels of Kevin Bacon, know someone who
Yeah,
knows someone who knows someone to get me to that lady because I was
I
like,
definitely
dang,
know people who know her personally,
we need to
but
make that happen, girl. I got this huge athletic crush because I was just showing my wife yesterday. I was like, dude, this girl's hot. And she goes, what? I go, well, watch what she just did. She goes, yep, that's hot. And I was like, yeah, see, duh. Uh, what do you listen to when you train?
that is a great question. It switches. So
Okay.
either rap, EDM, sometimes really intense instrumentals, and then sometimes just Christian music. So it's on rotation, just whatever I'm feeling.
What's an adventure activity you haven't done that you like to do?
I want to go skydiving, which my
Ooh,
parents are very against, but I think it'd
I've,
be fun.
I've done it twice. The first time, the second time, it was safer to jump out of the plane because it was so rickety.
Yeah,
And I was a big wuss. I did it tandem, so the other person's in charge,
yeah,
and it's terrifying. The second time I went though, fuck. So I'm sitting there, I'm in this group waiting to go up, and the next group is already coming down, and then the instructors are coming in, they're dragging in their chutes, getting ready to put on the next pack. Someone else repacks the chutes. And he's coming in and he's holding this cord in his hand that's not attached to the chute. Just kind of like big wide eyed, and people are like, no. And I was like, what the hell's that? What's that? And he goes, well, This is my primary cord that I pulled, and it ripped. So the chute didn't come out. He had to pull his auxiliary cord, the second one. And this is the guy that I'm going to be attached to next. And I'm like, whoa. So it didn't work. We had to go to the backup plan. So on the one hand, I was like, oh, at least my guy can do the backup plan and handle it, and he's calm and collected. But I was like, shit, we even need the backup plan. So now I'm really just sweating it. And now once the chute opens and you're just floating around, it's outstanding. It's outstanding. Like your office is the planet, and you're just looking
Yeah.
out for miles, and it's super cool. But going up for me, my anxiety, oh my god, I was ready to just shit out everything I'd eaten the last week. Favorite sports movie? Clearly missed Rocky a little bit, but we'll get you back on that one, girl. Favorite
This
sports
is
movie?
I really liked, I mean, I don't watch a ton of sports movies, so this is probably why this answer is going to make sense, but I really like The Blind Side. It was like my childhood, like classic, feel good, like
Yeah,
it's not even entirely sports related. It is sports adjacent, I guess. It's
yeah,
about sports,
sure,
sort of.
right. Um,
He becomes very good at football, so
damn right he is. He's so big, and it's based on a true story. So Silly's, response. Since I wrote this first book, the
yeah,
publisher liked what I did,
yeah,
probably because I paid him. But they said, "Hey, we're putting together this next book, and we want you to be the collaborators. 30 different authors, and they're talking about different points of resilience. And
yeah.
everyone's got them, right? We like your story. Want you to be one of the authors, or write one of the chapters. Everyone's writing one chapter. We know it was really neat. Quentin, the main actor in The Blind Side, was also an author.
That is so crazy.
So if you pick up that book, you'll read that, he's living with his brother and he's at this gig trying to be an actor and he's not doing very well.
Yeah,
And he got the role for The Blind Side, but then the whole movie gets shut down for like a year. So
yeah.
now he's like destitute, out of money. He's still working his other odd jobs, and he's getting ready to go back to his apartment where the landlord's about to kick him out.
Yeah.
But before he gets there, he gets this phone call. Hey, dude, movie's back on. We start on this date. We're good to go. Money's coming in. He just kept sticking with it, and then he ends up in that role in that movie, and then his career took off.
That's crazy.
And then neat.
That's so cool.
Super neat. Favorite sport to watch?
I love watching figure skating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite athlete?
Gabby Thomas. I mentioned her earlier. Right now, she's my favorite athlete right now because she's just crazy. She's one of those like one of the fastest women in the world, and she's like volunteering during the week, and she's just amazing. Like all around, just a really cool, grounded person. And she lives here in Austin too. So
Oh, sweet. Oh, give her a phone call. We'll put her on the show.
I don't know her super person. I could also another person. I've talked to her a few times, but I don't like have her number.
No problem. Maybe down the road. Just putting a little bug in here. Do you have a favorite book?
Love Does by
Love
Bob Goff. I don't know if you've ever seen it or read it. It's really good.
Love Does.
Yeah.
That's the title.
Yeah. You would, I think you would find it. I mean, yeah, it's a very good book.
All right. Now I ask this next question, and people assume I mean comics. It doesn't have to be that way. All right. Do you have a favorite hero or superhero? And it could be someone nonfiction, right?
Yeah.
And a favorite villain.
Okay, so the hero one's really gonna be interesting and might be a cheesy answer to most people, but because faith is so important to me, I would say Jesus. He's the hero of my life.
Undefeated.
And
What kind of?
yeah, so that is my hero. And then supervillain, this is so dumb. I don't watch really a ton of hero or villain movies.
Sure.
But my favorite villain that I love to love is the Grinch. Oh, I froze. Oh, there we go. And
Now
it's
you-
Christmas right now, so I have to say the Grinch.
and his
Um,
heart grew 2 sizes that day,
it did. So he went from the hero or from the villain to the sort of the hero.
right?
Um,
That's super fun.
yeah, favorite lift is just a normal you were supposed to ask me the question? Oh, no.
Go, girl. It's all right. Nothing wrong with being prepared.
My favorite lift is a back squat. It's
Awesome.
very basic.
Yeah, that's top two for me, probably.
Yeah.
Top two. So not trained for diving, and you said you like to stair stepper. Is there a favorite way to train? You like to do circuits or CrossFit or endurance?
Supersets,
Superset. Okay.
which is like I'll do my back squat and then I'll put like two exercises in between. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I do my squat, I work my legs, and then I do an arm exercise. I work my arms while my right legs are resting. And it's like it's how I worked out all throughout college. So everything I do is always a superset. Like there's always like 2 to 3 exercises in like a set. So
Gives one part the chance to break. Also makes
yeah,
it more fun, and it's a lot more efficient because
yeah,
there's only so much time.
yeah.
If you had 10 million, what would you do?
Um, super hard question. I really care a lot about like philanthropy and nonprofit work and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm the kind of person that would either try to start or consult with nonprofits, or just try to like use that money in some way to help people. Um, I just think, yeah, it'd be something I would obviously invest some of it. But yeah, I don't know. I would love to be able to help people. So,
Aw, world peace, right?
well,
Right.
well, that's never gonna happen, but I can do
Sure.
my best in my corner of the world.
Here's something I usually don't ask. What's something silly you blow some of it on?
Oh, something silly. Oh my goodness. Honestly, probably like I love a boat with like a wake surf. Like
Mm,
I love wake surfing, so I'd probably blow it on a boat.
yeah, be
I
up.
feel like
Sure.
I just want to be on the water.
Fun. Super fun. Uh, you got a quote that helps keep you going sometimes, or multiple quotes?
Yeah, I have a lot of quotes, but one that I always go back to is "You must do the things you think you cannot do." That was by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Mm.
I that sums up pretty much my entire life. So,
When you do that, you have built this rep in your head that then translates to so much more confidence, so which
yeah.
then propels you to do other things that are fearful. So that's super impactful approach to things.
Yep.
Where can we find you? Which is not easy necessarily.
It's not
People,
easy to find me.
yeah, I had to type. There's a number of Alison Gibsons out there, and I was like, well, shoot. So, uh,
Yeah. Um,
where can people find you?
I mean, Instagram is the best for
Okay.
me. AAG Texas. People tell me I need to change my handle to my name so it's easier to find me. I'm like, I know I probably should, but AAG Texas is my Instagram, and then I have like a LinkedIn. If you type in Alison Gibson, Austin, Texas, I'd probably come up. I don't really use Facebook much, but yeah, mainly Instagram is where I am, and I haven't posted a ton lately, but um, I have a lot of my story on there, so.
If you were a branding consultant, what would you tell Alison Gibson to put as her handle on Instagram?
Probably Alison Gibson
Oh,
as my
okay. Just
name,
wondering. Just
so
wondering.
when people actually search my name, they can find me.
That was fun for me. Anything else we need to know, or anything else you want to shout out, or also shout out Jeremy Trinchier for hooking us up. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think if I'm gonna conclude with anything, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that success isn't always defined by result. It's it's defined by what you learned along the way, the lessons you learned along the way, how you grew, the people that you met, the experiences that you had. And those lessons and experiences will carry forward to be very valuable in your life.
True.
And so always remember that. Don't define yourself by one result. Look at the full picture. Write down what you learned and carry that forward into life, and it will take you very far.
Awesome, man. Alice, another true gift. I'm so blessed with this podcast because I meet awesome people and I'm inspired. And so it's continuing education and it's inspiring education for me every week. So I'm selfishly, it's so awesome. And you brought all that and didn't disappoint. The Rocky Balboa of U.S. diving, Alison Gibson, right? Two-time Olympian
Yeah.
and so much more. So
Yeah.
thanks so much, Alison.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. And for those that still reach out to us, or, week in and week out, that has questions, same deal. info@athlete-builder.com. Episode is going to come out right around Christmas. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And again, Alison, thanks so much.
Thank you.